As president, I will go after the bad actors. And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food. My plan will include new penalties for opportunistic companies that exploit crises and break the rules, and we will support smaller food businesses that are trying to play by the rules and get ahead.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Rescue Michigan weekly live stream. And with me tonight is Shane Trejo. How's it going, buddy?
Going.
You know, it's frustrating when politicians are economically illiterate. I know a lot of voters are economically illiterate and will talk about things like price controls, like these aren't terrible things that will cause absolute disaster. It's another thing when they don't know the word price gouging and can't read. They say price gauging. She said price gauging. Price gauging. We want to ban price gauging. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
and
she
that's
doesn't
only
know the concepts at all, and it's just reading from a script. And they want to, find anyone to demonize except, talk about the inflationary policies of the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't surprise me that she sounded that stupid about it.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, Jay's laughing at the price gauging as well. We had a new thumbnail, and the artist Shepard Fairey, Shepard Fairey, the guy that did the famous iconic portrait of Barack Obama, the with the red, white, and blue, or maybe off-white, but that one with the and it said hope. And he has made a new poster for Kamala, and here it is, and Kamunism. Now he, of course, that's not the one he actually made. I made that without the help of AI, because AI does not work out well, as we talked about last week. Someone in the chat from last week, or a viewer from last week's show, we were talking about the thumbnail, and the AI for making a thumbnail of Kristina Karamo did not work out well. So you'll have to see last week's live stream for that one. But a fan of the show sent this in, so I put this on the screen. So once again, handcrafted artwork beats the AI, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now official that humans can still make better art than a machine can. So there you go. Jay says lots of chatter on X this weekend about how Harris is a chronic alcoholic and that constant day drinking explains all of her crazy behavior. Yeah, we did a bit a week or two ago. Really based on Michael Malice's comments on the Joe Rogan show about how Kamala acts like a wine mom all the time. And there was actually a really good, for anyone who doesn't understand, why price gouging is bad, which I guess there are a lot of people that really don't, because that was like a popular thing during COVID, was Dana Nessel, we're going to prosecute price gougers, even though that's like not actually against the law. But there's this advanced concept in economics called supply and demand. And it turns out when you tell people that they can't charge above a certain price for something, and the supply gets cut down, that's what causes shortages. Because you see, actually, let me pull this post. This is a great little explanation of it. This is from someone on X named Robert Sterling, who wrote this. Let me zoom in so you can read it too. Here's a step-by-step summary of what happens when you have price controls. Number one, the government announces that grocery retailers aren't allowed to raise prices, which then they operate on 1 to 2% net margin, so they can't survive if their suppliers raise prices. The next, the government has to say the producers aren't allowed to raise prices. And now you have a problem because not all grocery stores are created equal. The ones in lower income areas, the ones where there's more shoplifting, the ones where there's not a lot of buying the expensive things, sell lower margin prepackaged foods into the higher margin fresh products. So there's this little unequal distribution problem that goes on. But meanwhile, the margins for food producers are now going down because they can't make money. Their primary costs aren't fixed. Their money is disappearing. So now they lose production capacity. But I guess remember in COVID, we actually had shortages. Wonder what happened that caused shortages. So they now start to repurpose their stores to sell not price controlled items, anything from nutrition supplements to kitchenware to apparel, and they avoid the price controlled stuff. So it turns Kroger into Walmart. They stop making products with lower margins because you don't want people buying the lower margin stuff. So everything, if you can't raise your, I mean, this is like everything else, guys. This is like minimum wage. Oh, you can't pay you can't pay a waitress less than $10 an hour. Then I guess we can't afford to have any more waitresses. You know, that's the way that goes. So
yeah, the cost of these regulations are inevitably taken on by the consumer, because the businesses are going to adjust to stay in business as much as they can. And that's going to mean less choice for the consumer. It's going to mean higher cost for the consumer. It's going to mean less products available for the consumer. So anytime the government comes in and tries to enact these regulatory power grabs, supposedly to help the consumer, and I don't believe that they really want to help them. I think that's just a ruse. I think they know this is going to cripple people's economic power more. The people, I think they know it's going to hurt the people. That's what they want to do. But let's just say that they were trying to be altruistic. It's going to backfire for very predictable reasons.
yeah, and I think they're just counting on the audience not knowing any better. Like, oh yeah, we can just make your prices lower. That's what the government can do. Tim Coon says Milton Friedman, yep, or Murray Rothbard or Henry Hazlitt. Take your pick. Read up on economics, folks. 85,000 IRS agents going after the price gougers. Yep. But yeah, so this week is the big Democrat National Convention week, which is that awkward time when Democrats have to come out and act like they aren't complete freaks and be on camera for the whole day, for 4 days. I think they're having a 4-day convention as the Republicans did. I'm pretty sure, because why wouldn't they? But yeah, we have, sorry, I'm getting some buzzing in my earphones anytime I touch my headphone cord. I got to do something about that. Anyway, there is already going to be some riots happening in Chicago. So there's the story there. There's going to be apparently 270 organizations nationwide protesting the DNC. So that will be fun to see. Always good to see the left at war with itself. That's, you know, I guess in that way better than our national convention was, although, well, I mean, that's the weird thing, you know, because Republicans wouldn't protest the RNC, but it's weird that the Democrats or these extremists didn't protest the RNC, or did they? Did you see any, I mean, there were a few, right? But not like.
Yeah, there were a handful of people who were outside and, you know, just, you know, with the usual, you know, Republicans are racist, but I didn't see more than just, you know, small smattering. There were tons of cops everywhere, you know, who were there to stop that rabble rousing. Yeah. So I think there was like a march that they did around the RNC. I didn't get to see that, but I don't think it really devolved into any sort of violent threat. It was just, you know, we're going to like march and say our piece more than a Black Lives Matter riot from 2020 type deal. Yeah.
Well, this group says they are unhappy that they have only been approved to march a 1.1 mile route. That is evidently not enough space. They need 2.4 miles to march around and scream and yell and litter everywhere. And who knows, maybe break some things too. And yeah, so there's only thing they're worried about is the police. That's the only violence they're concerned about is the cops. Obviously, the cops are the bad guys. And they're only responsible for one thing, which is obviously not public safety, but just to make sure that they don't attack them and their First Amendment rights. So that's apparently the only thing cops do, guys. That's the only thing cops do, is to make sure that they don't infringe on their rights. Anyway, so we have, and of course, it's not just going to be the Palestine protesters. There's apparently this other guy who they quote in this article saying, this Mark Daniels, an unexpected addition to Sunday's event, who went to, oh, this is something else. This is today's event? I don't know. Well, anyway, some guy came to Chicago to distribute yarmulkes embroidered with the saying, make abortion kosher again. There's your new Democrat Party slogan, folks, right there. Make abortion kosher again. Perfect. Just what the Democrat Party needs. Everyone has the right to protest, he told the Tribune. I'm not qualified to do the geopolitics. But we need to find a way to lift people above this part of it. And I think the Muslims and Jews need to find a way to talk to each other, engage in a dialogue here in the U.S. Yeah, if there's one thing that can unite the Jews and the Muslims, it's killing babies, guys. That's the thing that's going to unite the party. This will be a great Democratic National Convention this coming starting tomorrow, and then Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Jason says the DNC will be offering vasectomies and abortion pills. There you go. Randy says, yeah, Macca. That's their new slogan is Macca. There you go. But so I've heard, and Shane, let me know if you've heard this, that Joe Biden doesn't really want to have anything to do with this event. And so he's going to speak like briefly early on Monday, and they're going to get him the hell out of there as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, the rumor is that they might invoke the 25th Amendment, try to get him out of there to make Kamala the official president, to coronate her, maybe a couple months before the election or around that time, or
I
try
have
to
predicted
him to
that.
step down.
I have predicted they're going to start doing that. They're going to start in any minute. Maybe this is what they've been waiting for, is for the DNC to be over with, and then it's going to then the pressure will really start. There's been a few voices here and there saying Biden needs to resign immediately, let Kamala be president, give her that bump. But they haven't done it yet. I haven't seen many major Democrat officials doing that yet. But I'll bet you, right after the convention is over and he's no longer needed, it's going to be get him out of there. Jason, talking about the vasectomies and abortion pills, he says, seriously, look it up. It's a mobile unit. They're going to really do that there. It's amazing. That's amazing. But yeah, we shall see. The other thing they could do, what do you think about this? What if Kamala loses the election in November and they get Joe Biden to step down just so that they can say she was the 47th president and Trump becomes the 48th? Because she was in office for 8 weeks, 8 weeks before Trump takes office again. Who knows? There's nothing they wouldn't do. But yeah, Tim says they will want her to run as an incumbent. Exactly. That is the name of the game. Some other things going on with Kamala Harris. I'm sure we'll see her face again soon enough this week too. But Whitmer was on the TV this weekend saying people are reading too much into the specifics of that price gouging plan. Look at that smirk. That's like, here, let me see. I've got the video of this here someplace. Hold on. Where that smirk is like just kind of frozen on Whitmer's face. I don't think it was this clip. Maybe it is. Man, I'll play the clip here. Let's see.
Let's delve into some of the policies the vice president.
It is a 9-minute clip. I'm not going to play it the whole way through, so never mind that. But Jamie says it's true. I just looked it up. Yeah, amazing.
This Whitmer, reading too much comment. That's, in my opinion, it's her just signaling to the corporate elite that we're just blowing smoke up everyone's asses. We're really not going to do anything. Don't worry about it too much.
Yeah. Don't read too much into the things she announces as her policies, because you should never expect those will actually be her policies.
Yep. With the amount of corporate money that's now coming into the Democrat Party, it's doubtful that they're going to really do some sort of policy that would hurt the mega corporations. Although maybe, they just find the price gouging thing as a way to squeeze the little guy out more. And even if the corporations took a hit at the end of the day, they'll be the last men standing. So I guess, we'll see if they really go through with it, if they're elected.
Yep. Let's hope we don't have to find out, shall we? Anyway, what else has been going on this week? There's been a few things in the news. There's a new global health emergency, guys. Have you heard? In case you don't know, fortunately, the World Health Organization, the WHO, did not pass their treaty earlier this year. They didn't get the support for it because the countries couldn't agree on it. But that's probably a good thing, because there's now a global pandemic once again. And if that treaty was in effect, then our constitutional rights would be suspended, basically. That's barely an exaggeration, because when you can do with treaties is incredible. You can go around almost everything in the Constitution with treaties. But yeah, the virus, for those who don't know, the super virus that's killing everybody is the monkeypox. Yes, that's right. The old monkeypox, which they don't want to call it monkeypox anymore because, you know, it's well, because mainly because most of the outbreaks are in Africa, and that's just doesn't not a good look. So they don't call it that anymore. Now it's called the mpox. The mpox, much more neutral. Oh, here I found that video on my Twitter feed. Well, here I'll put this on the screen for a second just so you can see, because that smirk, it looks like it's like starting to freeze onto her. Yeah, here she is talking about how important it is to provide driver licenses, free college, and free healthcare to illegal aliens, and in that same interview, and it's like that. Hold on, the
Too much Botox.
Yeah, that could be another. It could be a Botox disaster right there. So anyway, what was I looking for again? Oh yeah, I was looking for that clip from about the monkeypox. So yes, a global pandemic. Which, by the way, it's just looking around. All of a sudden, the news has to say it's not a sexually transmitted disease. The reason being because it is a sexually transmitted disease. There's been a bunch of articles about that.
And if you're not involved in unprotected homosexual sex acts, your chances of getting the monkeypox are what, 0%?
Yeah. Here's something I reposted a few days ago, and there's a bunch of articles talking about this. A scientific journal article, experts saying no, it really is a sexual disease. Some Vox story talking about it. Yeah, that kind of is where things left off with it a few months ago. Then now it's come back. Yeah, this is. I gotta play this. I see Kelly says, "Can we talk about local elections?" We will talk about the local elections, Kelly, but we have to do one thing at a time here. So let me here. Tell me we got sent on this. For those guys who don't know who this is, this guy Danny Polishchuk, I guess. He tours with what's the guy's name? The guy's Ryan Long. The guy's always doing all the anti-woke stuff. He's his opening act, and he posted this some time ago. How they do contact tracing of monkeypox. Here we go.
I think you.
Let me play this.
Hello. Hi. Yes, my name is Lyle Overbay. I'm calling from the New York City Department of Health. Is there a Mr. Kevin speaking? Oh, my apologies. You're not a Mister. What do you go by there? Can't say I've ever heard that before. That's okay. The reason I'm calling today is your test results have come back, and unfortunately, you have tested positive for monkeypox. So I guess we could start. How many sexual partners have you had in the last 30 days? No. I think you misheard me. Not in the last 30 years, in the last 30 days. Oh. Okay. Do you know all of their names? You don't know any of their names. You've had that many sexual.
Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop it there. We'll move on, guys. We have to have some humor. We, it's politics. You gotta lighten things up a little bit. Speaking of that, we had our county conventions last week. Did you guys have a good convention?
In Oakland County, I mean, there was no, maybe in the city subcaucuses where people were broken off in the different city areas. There might have been some tension, but in terms of like the actual convention moving forward, there was no hiccups. It was as business as usual, and no real need for anyone to cause any problems. I don't think so. I think everyone who basically wanted to go to convention was able to, and there was no kind of superfluous angry mob type uprising. It was just very standard, very boilerplate. And I think all the rules were followed and there was no objections. So, it was it was the smoothest convention we've had in Oakland County in quite some time, many years. So cool. Good news here. Not necessarily in other counties, but good news here.
That is a big improvement. Yeah. Do you know something I don't know? Because I just saw Kelly wrote what happened in Macomb, and I didn't know anything about what happened in Macomb. What happened in Macomb,
from what I heard in Macomb, from some of my friends in Macomb, that it went until 3:30 a.m. and it had to do with the 10th district different contentious factions wanting to send their people to state convention. And it just was a big, long, grueling mess of a convention. And they went till 3:30 a.m. And by the time it was over, most of the people had left, and it was just a big shit show.
Jesus. Wow.
And also,
Well,
I was told by Heather Cerrone in the first district that Grand Traverse was also pretty crazy too. So there's some areas that are still kind of stuck in that factionalism, while other areas seem to be coming out of it.
Yeah. Well, we had a convention where nobody got kicked in the balls and nobody got stabbed. And considering that James Chapman was there, I'd call that a pretty successful evening. So, no, it was okay. I got made a state delegate. Actually, probably the best thing is James Chapman didn't. He got like last place. So amazingly, because the disruptors did get most of their folks in, but they didn't support Chapman. So that was like a positive sign. We've got some common ground here. We don't want to be in a room with people that stab other people and kick them in the balls and just in general kind of menaces to society. So other than that, I think it was okay. Kelly says Livingston was great. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, for those, and I shouldn't say obviously, for those who don't know, and many probably don't know, these county conventions really only had one purpose, which is to elect delegates to the state convention, which frankly, in a lot of ways, is a convention that no one should really care all that much about, to be honest. And obviously, some people are going to disagree with that. No, and I shouldn't probably say that because I'm helping out Tom McMillan running for his second term on the State Board of Education. But, the point being, we're not nominating for attorney general here. We're not electing new state party leadership here. It's the university boards. It's the electors for Trump, which is basically a ceremonial position, although the ones in 2020 got a lot more than they bargained for. And the state Supreme Court. And that's it, really. So you would think that there wouldn't be even, and back in the day, there wasn't enough interest in the party to even have any kind of contentious race for delegates. Like if you want to show up, you would get there. And there was like, there was to it. Now there's fighting over to become a delegate to vote for who's going to be the next U of M region candidate, which seems a bit odd to me. But we have to keep in mind two things. First, if they could, the disruptors would vote to overthrow the chair at that convention, Pete Hoekstra, regardless of the fact that there's an election in 80 days. They would still vote to do it, And in fact, the other thing going on, too, is one of the three candidates for U of M Regent is Ron Weiser, who was the state chair before Kristina Karamo. The Karamo's people all despise, and who will probably be trying to make sure he does not get the nomination for U of M Regent, which I don't know. Well, let me ask you, Shane, because I've been yammering here for a while. What do you think about all this? What do you think about Weiser? What do you think about the candidates? What's your read on the whole convention?
Well, I'm supporting Julian Madej for Michigan State trustee, Savag Vartanian for U of M Regent, and Michael Balo for Michigan State Board of Trustee. I think we need people on the boards who are going to go in there and have like that fighting mentality. Are going to go in there and be the wrench in the works. Weiser's been on the board of regents for a while now at University of Michigan, and
it's an 8-year term, I believe.
Yeah, he's never been the type who's going to go in and start throwing bombs against the establishment, obviously. So we need people who are going to go in there and make a stand and do whatever's in their power, even if it's just using the bully pulpit to cause trouble for the liberal establishment at these universities. So that's why I don't buy into a lot of the stuff that people say about Ron Weiser. He's the devil and he's engineered all this stuff he's sabotaging the party. I think that he's put up many millions of his own money for the party because he wants the party to succeed. It's just that he is from that old establishment guard, and he has those sort of opinions of how politics should be run. We need fighters. We need people who are going to go in there and advocate for strong conservative principles And that's what I think Julian Madej, Michael Balo, and Savag Vartanian will do, and where Weiser has failed in that regard.
Well, one thing on that point though is that we're electing 2 candidates, not just one. So there's 3. I think for all 3 of the universities, U of M, Michigan State, Wayne State. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there are 3 candidates in each of those for 2 seats in each of those.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Is that it's Savag Vartanian, Carl Myers, and Ron Weiser for Michigan for the Board of Regents there. So Savag is the proven fighter. If you want to vote for someone else, feel free to if you're a delegate, talk to both the candidates, see if Carl or Ron are more your speed. But Savag is the guy that I can say is the proven fighter.
I've met Savag. He seems great. I didn't know he was a proven fighter. What's he done in fighting?
Well, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, could he go there and sell out immediately? You never know with anyone that you put in office, but it's a guy who's been, for the last 5 years that I've known him, very consistent in his personal stances and beliefs, and not a career politician type, more of just like a pissed off father who had a kid who in the school and saw all the bullshit and wants to fight back against it. So I think it's a better pedigree than having a guy in there who's been there for 8 years and is kind of just going with the flow like Ron Weiser is.
Well, I'll bet what you're going to see at the convention on Saturday is the disruptors will be trying to get everybody to vote for Carl Myers and Savag because they want Weiser to lose. They want Weiser to lose just because he was the chair before Kristina, and therefore everything must be his fault. But let me show you guys. This is just so we see a little bit about who they are. This is hold on, let me go to the right tab here. So this is Savag's profile page on his own website. He runs a capital asset management firm. So you've got them. You've got Carl Myers. What's his background? Oh, it's also in finance. And guys, this is I meant to go switch to this tab, but this is from Myers' profile from I think 4 years ago. So business management. Does this sound like a guy who was a hardcore grassroots patriot type, appointed by the governor to the state police pension board, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, solves complex financial problems, yada, yada, yada.
More of a bureaucrat's record than I would like.
Well, here's what I would point out to folks, and this is something that I bet you the delegates are not even thinking of. This is the election results in 2016. Guess what happened in 2016? Ron Weiser won a seat on the U of M Board of Regents, and Carl Myers did not. So Ron Weiser has the benefit of having won an election. Here's the thing, okay, I love the idea that we're going to have a great candidate to be a U of M regent. I believe Weiser is I think he's the only Republican on the Board of Regents. So, and I would say this too, guys, honestly, I can't think of, and correct me if you, or let me know if any of you can, any of you, Shane included, Patty, Amber, John, all you guys in the chat, name one thing the U of M Board of Regents has voted on in the last 8 years. I can't name a thing. I can't name one single thing. So I'm looking at this like this. If we decide to put Ron Weiser in third place in a field of 3 for 2 candidates for Michigan Regent, all you're doing is basically just telling him, take your money and get lost, Ron. And, Patty corrects me. Sarah Hubbard is on the Board of Regents, and she was aware that they did vote on serving beer at football games. So there you go. But anyway, my point being, and I, full disclosure, I have never in my life taken a dime from Ron Weiser, but my county GOP has. And you know what? Like he donated to our last Lincoln Day, then he gave us 10 youth tables. He donated for 80 high school and college kids to come to our annual fundraising dinner for free. You know what he asked us to do for that? Nothing. Not a damn thing. So, I would just say, if you want to shit on Ron Weiser a third time, maybe a second time, I don't know. All we're going to do is make it harder for Trump to win, because you're going to take a millionaire and his money and tell him to go pound sand. So,
John, highlight John C. King's comment.
let's see. Hold on. Where'd it go? I gotta find it. Oh, here. Yeah, Ron had the misfortune of Michonne Maddock as co-chair. Yeah, hey, Ron put Michonne Maddock as co-chair. How about that? That's I would think that's laudable.
Yeah, that's where Ron won my respect, is because there was a lot of pressure after January 6th for Ron Weiser to throw Michonne to the wolves and disavow her and go to war with the Trump people. There's a lot of very rich people in the GOP mix in the state of Michigan who were publicly clamoring for that to be done. But Ron stood strong and stood by the Trump movement. And of course, he never got any credit from that from the grassroots, who just wanted to demonize him. Not necessarily for any good reason, but because they thought, oh, if we demonize him, throw him under the bus, that can be the stepping stool for our power grab.
Yeah. Yeah. Kelly Powell says, I could almost care less about Ann Arbor, but Ron's a good guy. Yeah. Here's the thing, folks. Wouldn't matter who you elect for U of M Regent. U of M will still be a communist indoctrination center. That's not going to change. That's not going to change. But, what might change is how much money gets donated to our party this year, which might be important to have to happen. Just saying. It doesn't hurt. Mark says he was elected into an alternate to the state convention and says being a precinct delegate is awesome. There you go. Good job, Mark. Randy says, I didn't boo him in 2022 and I won't boo him now. Hey, there you go. Yeah. Jason says, at least Weiser had put money in the party. Kristina Karamo put in how much? On Rumble. Sorry, I know Rumble. I always read your chats way, way, way later. Charlotte Cosmic. So after these elections of 2024, what do we do till primary 2026? You focus on the primary in 2026 is what you do. Recruit candidates and knock on doors and canvass your precinct and get ready for the 2026 primary. Anyway, all right. There may be some other state convention stuff to talk about, but I want to talk about the main thing tonight. Shane, you have an awesome article out, and I think maybe this is what Kelly Powell was alluding to about the local elections we had, which we've talked about a little bit since the election. But I want to put this story up. It's on your website, gnppac.com. It's the story on the blog. Millions in Rhino dark money spent to bury conservatives in August primary elections. And here you go. Here's the main story. Millions of dollars that could have gone towards defeating Democrats in November were instead squandered on defeating conservatives in primary elections in August. And you go through all the races and lots of mailers, which we should definitely look at a little bit. These mailers, there's some things about these mailers that catch my eye, including particularly who pays for them. But something else too. There's something I've spotted something about this that just and obviously we don't need this to prove it because we already know it. But these mailers were made by the same people that control the Republican policies in the House and Senate in their communications. Although this one says paid for by citizens for energizing Michigan's economy. That's the utility monopolies. So this is DTE and Consumers Energy.
Yep.
Consumers
PAC.
This mailing. Yep. Now this mailer. Let me know if you see a word here that sticks out to you. Call Jennifer Wartz. Tell her you support her plan for Michigan. Jennifer Wartz with a Faith First plan for Michigan. And she has a plan to grow Michigan's economy. And she has a plan for Michigan. Also, in case you didn't know, she has a plan for Michigan. She has a plan for Michigan. She has a plan for Michigan. She has a plan. Was Adam's talking about as a negative one? Obviously, that's in a different category. We'll come back to those, but I want to move on here. The Gina Johnson one's
the budget trader. Getting a million flyers sent out in her district to, that's what happens when you serve the Lansing elite. And when you betray your constituents, you are supported with all these mailers. And then they tried to come after Josh Shriver and
and by the way, I want to go through all these because they're all interesting. But I want to follow up on the point I was getting at too. Maybe these other ones don't do it. I guess they don't. But that one with the plan. let's see. Is there any more in here? Okay, I guess it was just that one. Anyway, the reason why I was going to talk about that real quick is just because one thing in Lansing they always do all the time, and it drove me bonkers because I always thought it was so bad. The comms office had an important thing. You never call a piece of legislation a bill. You never call it a piece of legislation. It's always to be called a plan. And in every single communication that the House puts out, it's this plan, that plan, this plan, the Republican plan, so-and-so's plan, the plan for this, the plan for that. It's always the word plan. And in a lot of contexts, I think that sounds weak. Like, it's nice when you say, Gary Glenn authored legislation to break up the utility monopolies or something like that, which he did. But it's one of those little
weak messaging. It's sent out, through a bunch of consultants, and obviously, there's tell her you support the plan for Michigan. Oh, what are the specifics of that plan? Oh, well, that's not on the flyer. That's not on the. You'll have to find that out after she's elected, and then you'll find out that her plan is to just vote the way Consumers Energy wants her to vote the way HRCC slush fund wants her to vote. So they're just going to go, with the flow. They're going to take orders from the Lansing special interests, and it couldn't be more obvious. And when you see all these different mailers that go out in favor of these people, that kind of illustrates exactly what we're up against. The Karamo people wanted to fight with random Republicans inside the party. The people we should be fighting are groups like the HRCC, who are buying off conservatives, who are corrupting conservatives, who are putting in moderates, crushing conservatives in primaries. This is the real money power that we need all of our grassroots united to mount a challenge against. But instead, we're at each other's throats. And what happens? The HRCC and other big money, dark money dump groups come in and they steamroll us while we're all at each other's throats and picking all these feuds and petty fights in GOP district committees and county committees that really have no bearing on politics other than people's egos and being butthurt over what happened 4 conventions ago. We really need to focus on what matters, and that's defeating this money power that has a stranglehold on the Republican Party and puts in bad lawmakers, supports bad lawmakers, and punishes the people who are principled and the people who want to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's and you lay it out right here. 2 of the biggest players in all this were Rick Snyder, the former governor, and Bill Parfit, the hardcore Republicans for Whitmer oligarch. And yet, the Karamo clan, all they do is obsess about Ron Weiser, who, for the record, as far to the best of my knowledge, did nothing about Kristina Karamo. They claim endlessly, oh, he didn't give them the things they were required to have. And all these turn out to be lies, saying he left the party broken in debt and he didn't, stuff like that. But yet the people that are actually shaping the party to be controlled where it really matters, the people that actually make policy, the lawmakers, they do nothing about. Partly because they can't, because they can't. Because in order to be effective in politics with policymakers, you have to affect the outcome of elections, and elections are like poison to the Karamo people. They need conventions where there's a tiny group of their people that are all just, their friends that they recruited. When it comes to like, oh, we got to knock on doors, we got to convince people to vote for so and so. Oh, count me out. I got to have a life,
Yeah, you could mount, primary challenges against these people, put their feet to the fire, and it might not win, but you might be able to get someone in there who runs for state rep. Maybe they lose, but then they get a lot of supporters. Then they scale it back, run for county commission, run for township board or city council, and then they win those races. So it's all a process of getting people involved, getting them more experience, getting them to hit doors, getting them to find more people, to find more activists. That's what builds a grassroots, not just getting in these silos and having arguing with the same people and feuding with the same people in echo chambers. That's that's what's going to lead us to peril. What we have to do is get involved in these races, find people who are, affable, who have a good background. Are they a veteran? Are they a former cop? Are they a business? They have a business and a name that's recognizable from that business. Find those people, have them run, and then, little by little, we can chip away at the establishment. But the idea that we're going to take over the Republican Party, state Republican Party, and then, oh, wow, it's everything's going to open up and we're going to have all this power and then the grassroots is going to reign. That's not how it works. It's going to take a long plotting effort for us to mount a real challenge to the establishment. Look at how many state reps we have that are solid conservatives. I mean, maybe you can maybe count them on one hand, and we could have had more. We could have had way more if the grassroots wasn't pointing guns at each other rather than putting up good candidates and fighting for them.
Well, having us pointing guns at each other is the whole point of what some of these folks are in it for. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, look at this one. And by the way, look at this. State Representative Jamie Thompson says, I raised $47,000 and my Democrat opponent has raised over $125,000, 40% coming from California and DC. We can only win on the ground with a swing voter. Please sign up to help me knock on doors. Yeah, absolutely. And Jamie Thompson is one of the best lawmakers and in a tough seat that needs support. Please help Jamie Thompson by knocking on some doors.
And I'll tell you, I'll be down in downriver, knocking doors, not just for Jamie, but for Rep. Jim DeSena and Riley Linting, who is running against Jamie Churches. Downriver, Wayne County is an area where Republicans are on the grow. That can be, that used to be just as blue as any area in the state of Michigan, but now it is turning red, and we can make that into a red Republican stronghold. So that's definitely an area that I'm highly interested in. I'll be knocking doors down there and recruiting other people to do it. And HRCC, if they're not completely corrupt, should be dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into each of those races so that they can be competitive, because the Democrats will be putting that sort of money up, as Jamie said. And if HRCC is complacent, then we may lose those seats. So it would be extreme malpractice if HRCC doesn't put their some of their substantial resources to those downriver Republican races.
Yeah, I mean, look at this flyer. It's paid for by a dark money Republican group. Plug in Jamie Thompson. Plug in Gina Johnson. How should Jamie Thompson feel about that money going to this and not going into for her own campaign? Don't answer that, Representative. Don't answer that. These ads, by the way, I mean, we could go through them. Obviously they're disingenuous, but who cares? I mean, all this crap. Gina Johnson didn't do anything for fighting what we call cleaning their skirt bills, where they just put in stuff they know is not going to pass just so they can say they tried.
Yep.
But this one, whoever may have mailed this out, and this one, I don't know what the other side is. I'm not sure who paid for this one. This is a dirty ad right here. But the shame for this, let me zoom out so you can see this kind of whole thing. John Rocha's, this is the primary challenger for Gina Johnson. John Rocha's NRA rating, ? Outright hostility to gun owners. The NRA rating of ? Often indicates indifferent, if not outright hostility, to gun owners and sportsmen's rights. Now, as it happens, John Rocha actually made a point about this, that they endorse incumbents always, and they don't make the surveys available to non-incumbents. And by the way, and this is why the NRA should not be trusted. The NRA is one of the biggest anti-gun organizations in America, folks. The NRA, sold us out for the Brady Act back in the day. Who was A-rated lifetime A rating by the NRA? Harry Reid, the Democrat Senate Majority Leader, biggest anti-gun advocate in America, and they gave him an A rating. You know why? For access, because they wanted to. Because sometimes you got to play the game, right, for that access to the politicians. The NRA is a disgrace.
Yeah, the NRA and Right to Life are notoriously bad for rubber stamping Republican establishment politicians and screwing over the people who are going against them. Even though the people who are going against them are often more pro-gun or more pro-life, they will screw them over because they want to keep the establishment in power. and whatever deals they have and whatever niche they have, they want to protect that rather than actually protect life and protect gun rights. So
Yeah,
I would say support the National Association for Gun Rights or Gun Owners for America, and there are other rival groups against right to life too that you should be supporting if you're an anti-abortion activist.
Yeah, I got a story for you about Michigan Right to Life. When John Riley first got elected and he first took office, the Right to Life people come into his office, and you could tell they're expecting warm fuzzies because they know he's passionately pro-life and they're right to life. So this is going to be a wonderful, happy meeting. And John, right from the get-go, lays into them. He is pissed at them. He's like, "You endorsed my opponent in the primary. And I'm the one that's like going to the Right to Life marches in Washington, D.C. I go to the March for Life. Life is important to me. And my opponent didn't do anything to protect life." And they're like, well, you see, John, we have a policy. We always support Republican incumbents, no matter what. And that's great, John. That's great for you, because guess what? Now you're the incumbent, John. Isn't that wonderful? He's like, yeah, but you would be supporting me as the incumbent anyway, because I'm actually pro-life. Like that was their mentality. It's so stupid. And I mean, that's also why Republicans never do anything pro-life when they're in the majority, because they don't have to, and they know it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they get.
Yeah, so the Right to Life is there to whine about the issue, to rally Republicans in different elections to support the establishment Republicans, keep the red versus blue divide where it doesn't really matter who wins going, so that they can keep having their dinners and their grift. And I think a lot of those Right to Life people, or at least the professionalized Right to Life people, were mad that Trump overturned Roe versus Wade, because now they can't fundraise off of ending Roe versus Wade anymore. That took a little bit out of their gravy boat.
Yeah. And, that's only one organization, folks. If you're pro-life, there's other groups out there. So do your research. National Pro-Life Alliance. I haven't heard from them recently, so I haven't done research recently, but I think the SBA list is a very good one. Susan B. Anthony list. There's other pro-life organizations out there besides Right to Life. And actually, Michigan Right to Life actually does oppose the rape and incest exception, but every other Right to Life chapter nationally doesn't. So, which I think is a real problem, because if you're pro-life, how can it be okay to kill a child just because the father's a rapist? That doesn't make any sense. But whatever. Anyway, bunch more ads, and they're all in your article, Shane. This is from Randy Levasseur, who carpet-bagged over from Royal Oak to run against Josh Shriver, got clobbered. These are paid for by him, so it doesn't mean the HRCC wasn't. I mean, they probably were not involved in this, but doesn't mean Rick Snyder wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is that, regardless of, it's not all from the same group, but all these different groups are affiliated. They're pushing the same agenda. They want conservatives out, and they want, squishy moderates in there who they can bully and will surrender to the special interest agenda in Lansing. So I put them all under the same umbrella, and they were all certainly pushing for the same agenda of crushing conservatism in the 2022 primary elections.
Yeah. Tim Coon says, where do I find Shane's articles? Tim, most of them you find at bigleaguepolitics.com. Is that still correct, Shane? But this one is
bigleaguepolitics.com for more nationally scoped articles. But we just got we had a new page for Grand New Party. So Michigan specific, legislative specific type stuff. Check out gnppac.com, click blog, where it's up there on the top. And we're going to have a lot of articles exposing the Lansing elite, exposing the rhinos in a way that will give people kind of actionable information, where if you want to really make a difference, not just stay in an echo chamber and do things that have already previously failed, then we're going to provide that information to you, and you can be as useful as possible fighting back against this agenda.
Yeah. This is a funny ad right here. This one from the guy that ran against Matt Maddock. Very personal, very poorly made, I must say, for a slick, what we call the postcards, they call them slicks. Way too many words on the page. Really bad use of shading at the top there. Just graphically very poorly done. And here's an interesting thing at the bottom. You see, I'll zoom in on this. You may have noticed this occasionally on these political ads. This thing right here, look at that. Oh, is my cursor on the screen there? Can you see it? I'm zooming into like right underneath the paid for by, and there's this little symbol here. I don't see my cursor on the screen in the whatever. It's okay. You see it there though, right there under Milford, Michigan. That little symbol there, that's called the union bug. That is something you usually only ever see on Democrat mailers, because that means proudly made with union labor. And ordinarily, even if a Republican campaign was using a union mail shop, they don't have to put the bug on it. And in fact, my political mentor, he would say if an ad came out and the print shop put that on there, I would make them throw it all in the trash and do it all over again, because my mail does not go out with that symbol on it. That is a symbol of the radical left. And so.
And look
anyway.
down there, it says Maddox doesn't care about White Lake Township because he's not in there playing kiss ass with the local bureaucrats and taking all their demands and going to Lansing and trying to get money for their pet projects so that they can satisfy their cronies. So basically, because Mack doesn't play the game, he's not endorsed by the asshole corrupt state city officials or township officials there. So that was the kind of the attacks that they tried to put on Maddox. But as you can see here, it's all very lame. The voters
this is a very zealous printer, the guy that designed these ads. Kindergarten Cop. This guy looks like he's younger than me, and I was probably 10 when I saw that movie. I don't remember anything about that movie. What is this about here? This is so weird. Oh well.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah.
Well, anyway, Matt Maddox told me, he's like, I basically spent the last 3 months on my boat. I didn't do anything for this election. I just won anyway. So anyway, do you want to talk about this one too?
Oh yeah, this is an interesting one. So Abe Dayne ran for Hillsdale County Clerk, and because he said that there was no fraud in the 2020 election, and he was going against someone, Stephanie Adams, who had been prosecuted for attempting to inspect ballot computers that were processing ballots or something to that effect. They're running for Hillsdale Clerk. So he got giant full-page mailers funded by Super PAC with national money to voters in Hillsdale County so that he could crush the election integrity activist and, flush that person out of politics. So huge outside. I mean, that's unprecedented that a county clerk's race would receive, that kind of national support, but it did. And they're really scared about people who are clerks or on the board of canvassers. If there's any sort of chicanery this year, that they'll use their authority as they should to not certify the election or hold up the certification of the election. So that's a really thing that the grassroots, or really a big thing that the establishment is terrified about right now. And that's why they're sending out giant full-page mailers on behalf of the guy that they know will go along to get along and certify the election if the powers that be tell them to.
Yeah. Jamie Thompson says, what are your serious thoughts on how low Republican turnout was in the primary? Are you concerned? We knocked on thousands of doors all summer encouraging people to vote. I was shocked by how few came out. Well, a couple of things to that point. First off, depending on what you're comparing them to, my experience is that voters come out in primaries when they think there's an important race to come out for. And they usually don't care all that much about local or even state legislative races, to be honest with you. Obviously the biggest race is the presidential, but that one was earlier this year. I think some voters just go, I thought I already voted for that, in the off year, in the midterm years, of course, you've got the governor and the attorney general, not the attorney general, caught myself, the governor race. And that does get people to come out because a lot of them tend to weigh in on those. This race, the big statewide race, was U.S. Senate. And you had Mike Rogers, who personally, I see nothing of interest in Mike Rogers for me personally. Justin Amash, who had previously voted to impeach Trump, and shoot, help me out, Shane. It's on tip of my tongue. I know. It's Sherry O'Donnell, who I think most voters hadn't even heard of. So, and even if they had heard of them, I think a lot of voters would have thought, you know what, it's a done deal anyway. Trump's endorsed Rogers, So, it's still a little disconcerting, sure, but there's all kinds of reasons, and it's very hard to interpret why voters decide not to come out in a primary. But I certainly would say this, folks: the fewer people come out in primaries, the more of an impact you can have in a primary, and because there's a smaller voting pool, and they call them primaries for a reason. That's that's what shapes the future of the party, and that's what this article has really been all about. Anyway, this is interesting, I found, because I wasn't sure why there was this outcome in this race. This race here, and okay, Tim Coon says Doc Sherry worked hard. Tim, I did not mean to put her down. It's just that if you don't have the ability to put in $1 million into your U.S. Senate race or have access to that kind of money, then it's just not going to work. Yeah, see, I would compare, Jamie, I wouldn't compare to 2022. I'd compare to 2020. And even that, you have to look at the candidates, because, you have to look at every race in terms of the candidates, the issues, things like that. Anyway, as I was saying about this race, this is a race, we talked about this, the stream we did after the election when the results had first come in. And I was surprised that Dominic Restuccia did kind of poorly. The story in this race, this was a race.
I thought Dominic did good.
He came in third.
He did a very competitive race. I was impressed by it, actually.
I was surprised he wasn't in the top two. Okay. But the reason why I think this kind of sheds a little bit of light on this, actually, is because the backstory to this was a 4-candidate race. Bob Bazat was the incumbent who was going to retire. Then he announced that he was going to jump back in the race at the last minute. Then he got thrown off the ballot because he didn't actually live at his address. His soon-to-be ex-wife did. And then he got a court to put him back on the ballot anyway. So the reason why he had announced his retirement, and he in fact actually recruited Jason Wolford into moving into the district as his chosen successor. And then apparently Matt Hall demanded he run for re-election because he needed his vote for speaker. And thank God he didn't win. But anyway, so it gets mailings like this one out. I don't know why these were redacted, Shane, when the others weren't, but whatever. It must have been pretty bad.
They what happened with Wolford, I'm not sure if Bazat recruited him directly, but he had run 2 years before in a nearby district, and is another guy who is going to go up there, and barring sometimes you do get that 180-degree flip in someone when they go up into Lansing and get their first free steak dinner or whatever, but barring some sort of turn like that, this guy's going to be a real champion, kind of in the mold of Matt Maddock, once he gets in there. So he, at first, I think Bazat endorsed him. Then Bazat endorsed him and Like at the same time. Kristina Like, one of his opponents. Yeah. And then after that, Bazat got into back into the race at the behest of Matt Hall, to be a Matt Hall vote, as the story goes. So after that happened, it kind of became a cluster, really unpredictable race. But I'm really happy that Jason Wolford's won, and I think I like Jason Dominic being a champion from that race for sure.
Yeah, we stayed out of that one just because I like Jason and I also like Dominic. But the way I looked at it was, I figured stuff like this was going to lead to it being that voters for that were Bazat voters might go to Wolford and back and forth, and they were going to be competing with the same group, and Dominic would have the opportunity to win with his own group of voters. But actually looking at these now and seeing these, it makes me think I bet voters had a negative reaction to this and didn't buy it and went to and then took whatever negatives they had on Bazat and used it to and combined that with this and decided to vote for Wolford instead.
And there's and this was from the Keep Michigan First. I don't think it was necessarily a PAC.
Yeah.
It was like some other designation, but they put out mailers against Wolford. They put out mailers, many mailers against
There it is there.
Adam Stockford, and then also against Frisky. So, obviously Frisky contributed to his own demise with whatever happened in Lansing on that fateful night. But at the same time, I don't think it would have mattered. I think even if he hadn't have done that, the mailers would have still went out because despite whatever may or may not have happened, he was a 95% good conservative voting record in the state house. So that was why he was targeted, not because of whatever indiscretions he may or may not have done.
Yeah, actually, as I look at this mailing, this makes me suspicious that this particular group is a left-wing group, because a right-wing group, they'd be happy to attack Frisky if they're an establishment right type, but they wouldn't have thrown Chatfield on there.
Yeah, I mean, but I think at this point, Chatfield's so far under the bus that they're like, screw it. Might as well connect him to that and get him out and get someone who we feel is going to be more pliable in there.
Yeah. On Rumble, Charlotte Cosmic says President Trump will be in Howell Tuesday at 3 p.m. at the Livingston Sheriff Department. Sign going up from airport to D19. What's D19 mean? District 19? I don't know. Howell, Michigan, Livingston County. Tuesday. There you go, 3 p.m. John C. King says, I was angered by your emails attacking your opponent. Dirty politics. Yeah, well, it's funny how that works. Sometimes, I mean, first of all, the reason why campaigns do negative ads is because they do work. Oh, Ron says D19's right. That's right. Yeah, I've seen D19 now that you mentioned it. What happens over time is that the emotional negative reaction to the ad subsides, but the intellectual effect of the ad remains. So over time, the negative ads still do tend to work. But sometimes there's weird circumstances where that can backfire, especially when what it's ended up doing is boosting the name ID among 3 other opponents. So that might be something going on there too. Mark Ashley Price directed to Jamie Thompson, but he says, wouldn't redistricting play a factor? It would, but what you can do, Mark, is you can look up the individual precinct results. Like after redistricting, we have a guy running for state house in the 31st district, which is different from what it was 4 years ago. But I looked at the election results in each of the precincts that are now in that legislative district to see that in 2020, it was 50-50 between the Democrat, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So you can still look up election results at the precinct level and tabulate them, even if you don't have the original districts to work with. Mark, isn't it true that Kwame Kilpatrick is a Republican? I don't know. Is that true, Shane? I think he used to be a Democrat. I don't know if he's officially made the transition.
Well, he's going to be speaking at the Oakland County Republican Party Lincoln Day dinner on Wednesday. I will be attending that dinner. I think it's a lot of people were pissed. There was like dozens of Facebook comments of people just absolutely pissed about him speaking there. But I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that, this guy, despite his faults, he could possibly deliver tens of thousands of votes to the inner city Detroit to Trump. He's still very popular in Detroit among many people. And people who hate him are already probably going to be not voting. People who hate him might be hardcore Republicans who are going to support Trump anyway, or they're Democrats who don't like what he did in the party. And so I don't think there's any real negative of letting Kwame Kilpatrick come in and trying to build that relationship and seeing what he can do to help bring over more people to vote for Trump. So whether he's a Republican or not, I think that, his presence, his working for Trump, his trying to get more black voters for Trump is a very, very good thing. and we can't throw that away. We have to do everything we can to win this election. Obviously, this is the most important election of our lifetime since the previous election. But little by little, the country is slipping away, and Trump getting elected would take things in the right direction pretty radically from the trajectory we're on now. So we have to. You can't throw someone like Kwame Kilpatrick away when that guy can really help us win and help us bridge the gap for the black vote in Detroit that's so crucial.
Yeah, that does matter. John Rocha says, "Oh, John King was talking about his emails against Gina. He didn't like them." Look, folks, again, negative ads work. But Patty says negative mailers and trash talking Facebook posts failed miserably for housing. Well, there's a few factors here. First off, there's a difference between a buffoonish, desperate, unfounded attack ad versus an attack ad that's got something to it. That's a big distinction. If the attack ad is Kamala Harris supported violent criminals in California, that's factually obvious and easily shown. Or, this guy lied about his military service, Tim Waltz. I was actually thinking, it's funny, when I came up with that, I was thinking about someone in a race I was involved with who he beat to death over his military service lies. But actually that applies to Tim Waltz too. So painful attacks, quality does matter. Quality really does matter. And an ad can be buffoonish, it can be biting, or it can be brutal. And it just depends on the circumstances. So there we go. Let's see here. Anyway, I was going to talk about this crazy email we got from a certain individual who I've talked about previously, who is associated with Kristina Karamo. I feel like that might be such a big topic I want to talk about on a separate stream.
Yeah.
I did have an additional topic to talk about tonight that will take up some time. And Jane, you're welcome to stay on with me as we talk about this. But just in general, been some world news, some World War III news this past week and a half. Last week, I was saying that any day now there's going to be an escalation in the Middle East. That hasn't happened quite yet, but it certainly seems like it's on the horizon. This hasn't happened just yet. There was a story, I think it was like, certainly the US, and I want to say like France and Britain and some other country sent a very sharply worded letter to Iran saying, you better dare not escalate, blah, blah, blah. And it just made them even angrier. And they apparently have now acquired S-400 air defense systems from Russia, which are like the world's most sophisticated air defense systems. Like they can't intercept hypersonics, but they're no joke. So that's any day now. But the big story with in the news with war is with Russia. There was this the Ukrainians, with the complete and total support of the US and NATO, invaded Russia. And they went in at a place called Kursk, which has a nuclear power plant. And clearly their objective was to take the nuclear power plant, which they didn't make it there. Unfortunately, they got stopped pretty far short of it. But they have still seized not critical or anything, not game-changing critical, but they are still present in Russia. And it was like something like 3 brigades worth. Some people said more than that number of brigades, but also the brigades were small. Something like 15,000 Russian or Ukrainian troops. Supposedly their best stuff too. Their best men, their best kit, their best Challenger tanks and Abrams tanks and all the best stuff the West has been getting them all went into Russia. And Russia has apparently, first off, just said, okay, we are not negotiating on any circumstances on anything anymore. Apparently, for months, they had been working on negotiating a deal with Ukraine to refrain from using drones and missiles to attack energy infrastructure. And it's being brokered by the UAE or Qatar or something. And it was like almost done. And it would have been a lot better for Ukraine because Russia has a lot more ability to attack Ukraine's energy infrastructure than the other way around. That deal is out the window now. and Russia is just like more determined than ever to see the whole thing through. And I mean, the biggest thing is NATO has invaded Russia. I mean, isn't that insane that the TV is not talking about this every single day of the week? We have invaded a nuclear superpower. Like, literally, folks, every single day you wake up alive is a miracle because we have now invaded Russia. And
it's amazing, you know. I mean, talk about the restraint of Putin and Russia from escalating this further. You know, I mean, that's really the story here, is how much restraint they've shown in the face of all these Western countries coming out and doing this unprecedentedly aggressive measures against them, getting worse and worse and worse. The more it fails, the more desperate they get, the more unhinged they get, the more they press forward, and Putin has been very measured in his response, and thank God, because if Putin was such a madman dictator like they say, we'd already be seeing mushroom clouds.
yeah, there was a video. I'm trying to find it now so I can put it on the screen. I want to show it because it was a video that has been playing pretty much all over Russian television for the last few days. And the video, I thought I had saved right here on my computer. I might have trouble finding it right now, but let me see if I can pull it up here. But what the video is of, it's this old man walking down the street, and he comes across some Ukrainian soldiers who are dressed like Nazis. They have an SS on one of them has an SS on his helmet, and they're picking on the guy. And he's speaking in a German accent as he torments the guy. And the guy went missing for the next 9 days, and people thought he was murdered by them. Apparently, and again, who knows? I don't know the truth. But someone more recently said they finally found the guy, and he is still alive. Why can't I find this video? I'm sorry, folks. I'm sure it's here someplace, but I lost it. But all over Russia, remember, 20 million Russians died fighting the Nazis in World War II. 20 million people. Russia does not like Nazis. And right now, NATO has American, Polish, German weapons and probably personnel in Russia right now killing Russians. And they're playing videos of Ukrainians wearing Nazi helmets tormenting Russian pensioners. They are going to be any thought that they're going to, apparently the Ukrainians thought, here's what we're going to do. We're going to storm the Kursk nuclear power plant and then trade that back for the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. So, and apparently now they're also, because the things are not going well, now they're resorting to taking hostages, in like local civilian hostages. So what started as a nuclear terrorism campaign now devolved into a regular terrorism campaign. And everything on every cylinder now is escalating. So between now and November 5th, guys, American voters will have to think about the world getting lit on fire and whether someone who can't pronounce the word gouging could be the president of the United States to deal with all of these forces. And the only way that's going to happen is if the media keeps the entire population of America absolutely stone cold in the dark.
And, Trump, on foreign policy is far from perfect. I think he's been getting too hawkish on Iran. The war in Iran would be probably more of a disaster than the war in Iraq or the war in Afghanistan even was. So Trump, is far from perfect on foreign policy, but just having a guy in there who's more apt to be like, oh, hey, let's make a deal. Let's bring both sides together rather than let's go and meddle and put in some grandiose scheme. Like a lot of these people, Victoria Nuland at the State Department, these NATO people, these bureaucrats who have these grand ambitions. They're in power right now. Trump would be more like, let's come to a conclusion. Maybe we'll sell them. Maybe we'll sell them some military ammunition or whatever. But let's try to get troops out of the region. Let's try to stop this conflict rather than have it go endlessly. And I'm the deal maker, so I'll make that deal. That's a better mentality than that career bureaucrat mentality of we know what's best. We're going to do what we want. We're going to impose it on you, and then we're going to say it's democracy, which is the Biden-Harris way.
Yeah. Left of Center says, I read that Ukraine is trying to siphon troops from the Donbass region because they're getting crushed there. I think there he means in Kursk, or she means in Kursk. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem is they don't have enough men and equipment anymore. So they've taken all their best stuff into Kursk. Now what's happening is the front lines collapsing even faster in Donbass. So they're running out of everything. And so is the West. What's going to happen when this now there's also, by the way, we've exhausted our stockpiles of artillery shells, which now Israel wants, and we don't have any to give them. I mean, it never ends. Anyway, I did find the video. Let me see. I'll play it just so you guys can see it. Let me know if the audio doesn't come through, but here we go. Here's the vehicle. This is them filming themselves, by the way. Freeze frame. You see that right there on his helmet? That's an SS. Guy imagines he's in the Schutzstaffel. Because that's who our tax dollars are paying for. Goddamn fucking Nazis. Anyway, here we go.
О, русский Иван. Русский Иван. Эй,
You got the
русский
doc on
Иван.
the page, Adam.
Как жизнь?
Oh, shoot. Sorry,
Как
I'm looking.
жизнь, русский Иван?
Those are my show notes. Some of them from older shows. I was looking for. I was looking for, because I saw left of center to clarify. They're trying to, no, Russia is trying to get Russian troops to flee back to Kursk and help. Well, I don't know. I was trying to find in my notes. I thought I had copied, which I couldn't find them. But one of the Chechen leaders says, no, we haven't even redeployed any troops from the front lines. We haven't needed to. Time will tell, I guess. But, you know, the people that have been saying Russia's out of missiles, Russia's weak, Russia's going to get crushed have been wrong about everything else so far for the past 2 years. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, so back to this guy.
Куда пошли? Не туда, видишь? Иван, вот он, Иван.
Russian Ivan.
74 года. Ja. Du bist russische Schweine. Ja.
You hear that? That was German, guys. That wasn't Ukrainian. Play that again.
Ja. Du bist russische Schweine. Ja.
Yeah. So that was on Russian televisions this past week, guys. Nazis in Russia, a country that lost 20 million of their men, women, and children in World War II fighting Nazis. You think they're gonna allow this to continue on? Think they're gonna trade their territory to nuclear terrorists? I doubt it. So crazy stuff. And assuming we're not all killed by an atomic blast between now and election day, probably a good thing for Trump, because I think any voters with any brains looking at what's going on in the world are going to be like, yeah, maybe someone that knows how to deal with foreign leaders, someone that knows how to talk tough might be the better choice here. Tim Coon says, you are a Russian pig. Me? Or is that what they were saying? I don't know. I don't speak German. I don't know what they were saying. Whatever. Oh, speaking of that, though, by the way, that something else happened on that score. Scott Ritter just had his house raided. For Scott Ritter, who's been interviewed on this show, by the way, if you haven't seen that, great interview a little over a year ago now. Accused of, not charged with, just gonna search through all of your equipment to see if you're maybe a Russian agent, Scott. Scott Ritter, who's a very prominent military analyst. He's been on lots of shows. Scott Ritter is an expert on all these things. He was a weapons inspector in the Cold War in Russia. like he knows a bit about that kind of stuff. And apparently the government does not like what he's saying. So yeah, Scott Ritter, Tim. Yeah, I should have mentioned that on the stream we did the other day when they're talking about Tulsi Gabbard too. Yeah, the government doesn't like people talking too much. So especially when you're not talking about the things the government wants you talking about. Anyway, Rumble Charlotte Cosmic says, let's see what I think the Democrat. That's a tough comment to read, Charlotte. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to ask me about there. Heather says, I was out to dinner recently and the guy at the table next to me asked his grandkids, who would China and Russia rather be president, Kamala or Trump? Yeah. Well, officially, I think Russia has said they couldn't care less because it's not going to make a difference, which is a fair thing for them to think, but who knows? There you go. Some folks in the chat are arguing back and forth. Well, that's fine. The primary's over, folks. Time to move on. It is what it is. All right, we've been going almost an hour and a half, Shane. It's been a long stream. Thanks, Si, for tuning in and spending your evening with us. Shane, what you mentioned we've got your Lincoln Day is this Wednesday, Oakland County. Where do people get tickets for that?
Oakland County Lincoln Day dinner. Go to oaklandgop.org to get tickets there. I want to also plug the Grand New Party PAC delegates portal. Pull that up on the screen. It's gnppac.com/delegates.
Yeah, let me get this Russian propaganda off my screen here. Hold on. I don't give a fuck what people accuse me of being. Anyway, okay, you know what? Oh, I forgot to mention, you know what the Russians did? They put a 5 million ruble bounty on those soldiers. 5 million. So, yeah, Russia captures Nazis. So, you know what? Good for them. Anyway, we're at gnppac.com. Here's the homepage.
So scroll down where it says delegates.
Yeah, I'm zoomed in here. Delegates.
Yeah, down.
Delegates. Check out our state-of-the-art resources for precinct activists. Check out our expose on how the Rhino establishment sabotaged America. Okay, we saw that already.
Yep. And then, we have a precinct activist training kit, the call we did for precinct activist training. And then we have a sign up for our precinct action caucus, which is going to be an interactive database where we have trainings, where we have a forum, where we post all kinds of different things that will help people be more successful in their precinct. How to really smoke out rhinos and defeat them, not just do this weird thing where you go to conventions and wreak havoc and then piss off good Republicans and then be counterproductive. We want people to actually get out in their communities and grow the movement and run for different local office and upward from there. So we're going to be providing that specific guidance for people who really want to fight back against the power structure, fight back against the special interests, and be effective. So we're going to have that precinct action caucus, many learning modules, a forum there that's going to any new precinct delegate who wants to be hooked up with a mentor who will teach them to hit doors and do other things to be effective. Flyer templates. We're going to have a lot of different interesting things there that are going to help people be more effective who want to revitalize their communities and help restore their state and their country. So sign up there. They'll be receiving more information in the upcoming weeks, and that's gnppac.com/delegates.
Right on. Oh, speaking of that, one more thing I forgot to mention. There was this article in the Detroit News that just came out recently. Michigan Republicans hope newfound unity can last until November, but fissures remain. And there's actually a quote here from none other than Karamo Lieutenant Lori Skibo. And Lori Skibo of Oakland County says she was aware of no plan to try to disrupt the state convention that will be run by Hoekstra's team on August 24th. So I think what they've realized is it's untenable to try to overthrow the state chair, and people wouldn't think, yeah, that might be bad for that might actually be bad for Donald Trump, which would probably be a bad look for us. But watch and see, guys. I'll bet you anything. I'll bet you they end up making Ron Weiser the target of their ire. So it is what it is. Also, the other thing I got to mention in that article, by the way, is there was a shout out here. Other Michigan Republicans have been raising red flags about financial moves that Karamo apparently made that have been uncovered by Hoekstra's administration as part of an audit. Members of the party's budget committee appeared Sunday on a broadcast by the group Rescue Michigan, in which they said $15,000 in mailed-in small dollar donations have been unopened by Karamo's team. Yeah, that's one of those negative attacks that is in the brutal category. She didn't even open her $15,000 checks in the mail and deposit the small dollar donations. Amazing. Tim Coon says there's now a GOP Victory Center on Mack Avenue. And it's Grosse Pointe Woods. Cool. Awesome. Polanaki says the Wayne 12th Trump Victory Center grand opening is on Tuesday, 6 to 8:30, 17800 Laurel Park Drive North in Livonia. Jay asks, do you think Karamo will just get elected again this winter? I don't know. We'll see. We'll know more after this convention on Sunday. That's for sure. Or Saturday, I mean. That reminds me, the other person might be the target of their ire is Matt DePerno is running for state Supreme Court. I forgot that is also happening. He is one of those. So we'll see. Although, see, I think DePerno's in a tough position because the Karamo supporters hate him, but the establishment don't like him either. So we'll see where that goes. Who knows? We'll find out more on Sunday, I guess. All right, folks. I think that will do it for us for tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, it has been a fun stream. We will have, I think, something during this week. So we'll see. But yeah, until then, thanks, guys, for tuning in. Shane, good to see you as always. Thanks for all you do for liberty. And until next time, peace.